Okay, so this is Label Reading 101, and we're going to also look at red flag ingredients. So, all of us eat packaged food, so we need to be able to read labels. And you might feel pretty comfortable reading labels, which is great. I want to go through it together, though, so that we are on the same page. I may point out some things that you weren't aware of, or maybe just reinforce something for you, or just give you a different perspective. Remember that the front of the package, no matter what it says, we have to turn the package over, find the food label, and read the label so that we actually know what's in that particular food product, because the front is really just all about marketing. It's about grabbing our attention, our kids' attention, and they put all kinds of things on the front of the package. Doesn't really necessarily mean much. So on the screen you have the label of a fictitious cereal called Corn Puffs, and let's just go through this together. So number one, at the top of the food label, the ingredient label, you have serving size. So this is 1 cup, and servings per container about 1. Now most of us probably don't measure out food, and I don't really actually recommend measuring out your food, because I really want you, and I want to teach our kids how to tune into our bodies and not necessarily worry about exactly how much we're eating. I do tend to pay attention sometimes to how many servings are in the box or the serving size, mainly because then I look down at the sugar, because sugar is something I pay probably most attention to on a label along with the ingredients. So I just kind of take notice of the serving size and how many servings are in a package. And then let's go down to number 2, calories. So remember from the first video this week that calories are not so important in terms of the amount of calories as much as where the calories are coming from and what kind of information that food, those ingredients, are giving to our bodies. So calories are not something that I actually suggest that you pay a lot of attention to. And I know we hear in the mainstream all the time, that we need to be counting calories, but there's so much misinformation about that, because again, it depends on where the calories come from, but also how your body processes the calories, and we're all different. So there's some basics there, but it's really, we don't really want to get stuck thinking about calories or teaching our kids to count calories. Number 3, total fat. So it says 0 grams, and a lot of people would get excited about that, right? Because a lot of people think that fat is bad. So when I see 0 grams, I don't jump up and down for joy, because I know that we need fat. We need real fat, including saturated fat. And a lot of times when a food company has 0 grams of fat, what they've done is to replace the taste. Fat gives food a good taste and a good texture and the flavor there. And so if a food is fat free, then food companies often have to add things like more sugar or other chemical ingredients to make up for the lack of fat and the good qualities with fat. So 0 grams of fat doesn't necessarily get me too excited. I do want to see under trans fat, though, I do want to see a 0 there. So trans fats are engineered fats, and food companies love them because it means when you use trans fats, the products can stay on the shelves longer, it's cheaper. So food companies love them, but we know lots of research showing that trans fats are bad for our bodies, that they are definitely connected to heart disease. Some places around the country are starting to ban them, like New York City and the restaurants there, because the research is pretty strong about trans fats. So we really want to avoid them. We might see a 0 there, and that's great, and the front of the box may say no trans fats, but if you follow that number 4 line down to the ingredient box at the bottom, you'll see that there's some partially hydrogenated vegetable oil in this particular product, and that's trans fat. So what's going on with that? Food companies are actually allowed to incorporate or include about 0.5 gram of trans fat per serving and still put a 0 under trans fat and still say no trans fat on the front of the package. 0.5 gram, maybe it doesn't sound like a lot, but it doesn't take a lot of trans fat to actually incorporate in the body and accumulate in the body and start to cause problems at the cellular level. So we really do want to make sure not only that a packaged food product says 0 trans fats, but we want to read the ingredients to make sure there aren't things like partially hydrogenated oils, or shortening, or margarine, or vegetable oils. So that's a little trick. I want to make sure you're aware of that. Then let's look at number 5, sugar. So I mentioned sugar is something that I actually do, pay attention to on this top part of the label, because we get so many grams of added sugar every day, all of us, even when we're pretty conscientious about limiting our added sugar intake. So when you see sugars and you see how many grams are there, so 14 grams per 1 cup on this example, you divide that 14 grams by 4. And we get, what, 3.5? So this would be like 3.5 packets of added sugar. So 3.5 packets. So every 4 grams is about 1 packet. So when you divide the grams of sugar by 4, you can visualize or actually get out sugar packets, which we're going to talk about doing next week when we dive a little deeper into sugar. And you can see how much sugar, added sugar, is in a packaged product. Sometimes it's not added sugar. Sometimes we're talking, say, for example, orange juice. Orange juice has sugar in it from the oranges, but it's a lot of sugar because it takes a lot of oranges to make a fairly small bottle of orange juice. So people say, but Angelle, it's just sugar from the fruit. Absolutely, but there's no fiber in there, there's no protein, there's no fat to buffer the effect of even the quote-unquote natural sugar. So when I see a product like this and there's no protein or very little protein, 1 gram, and no fat, then I actually not only look at the sugar, but I also look at the total carbohydrates. Because whatever else is making up those total carbohydrates besides sugar, it's probably enriched flour, and that turns in the body to sugar very quickly. It increases blood sugar, it increases insulin very quickly. So if there's no protein and no fat, you want to really look at total carbohydrates and divide that by 4. So then we're talking like 7, that's like 7 packets of sugar there. So it adds up. So this week we're just noticing that, and we're starting to pay more attention to how much sugar is in the foods that we eat at home, that we eat when we're out, so that we can start to think about maybe lessening that. All right, so number 6, the nutrient section. I don't pay a lot of attention to this section, and that's because with most packaged food products, the nutrients have been added back in. They're often synthetic, poor quality. So I'm not looking to get a lot of nutrients from my packaged food products. I'm going to get more of my nutrients from other foods, my real foods, some of my bridging foods that aren't necessarily in a package. And some of them may be, and I'll get more nutrients from those, like the Larabar that I gave as an example in the other video. That's a bridging food, and I can get some nutrients there. But my point is, with packaged foods, I'm not paying a ton of attention to the nutrients here. More importantly, I'm going to the ingredient box. So number 7, green star. This is really what you want to look at on a food label. You want to notice and read what the ingredients are. They go from greatest to least in the list in terms of volume and weight. And so the top ingredients, the top 5 ingredients is probably what the food product is mostly made out of. So here we've got milled corn, we've got sugar, we've got corn syrup, I think there's molasses, and then the partially hydrogenated oil. So this product is, mostly the milled corn is like an enriched flour, really. Even if it's a whole grain, it's highly processed, and it's going to impact blood sugar in a negative way. And we're going to be talking more about why that's even important to be thinking about blood sugar. But then the next couple ingredients are different forms of sugar. So food companies can use different forms of sugar so that sugar doesn't have to be the first ingredient necessarily on the package. So if it's different forms, they can be kind of spread throughout the ingredient list. And then if we keep reading ingredients, you see that there's vegetable oil, soybean oil, and there's a bunch of what looks like added synthetic vitamins and other sort of chemically sounding ingredients. So if we go back to the idea that food gives our bodies information, this food product isn't giving our bodies very much good information at all. It's not going to support our health. So when we read the label and we really look at the ingredients, that's where we can start to ask ourselves, is this a fake food? Is this a bridging food? Or is this a real food? I would put this in the fake food category. Now, if you're not sure, we're going to go over red flag ingredients in just a moment, but if you're reading a label and you're reading some ingredients and you're not sure, ask yourself the question that I have on the left-hand side. If I had the recipe for this product, could I go to a local grocery store or a farmer's market and buy the ingredients and make this product myself? Or would I have to stop at the lab to pick up the ingredients, and get help from a food scientist? I mean, that's just an easy way to start to filter, what you're putting in your cart and what you're leaving on the shelf. If it sounds like, the ingredients are from a lab and you need a little help with this, replicating this product, then leave it on the shelf and let's bump up the quality. Let's find something else that would fall into the bridging food category, at least, or the real food category. Let's talk about red flag ingredients. I mean, there's some ingredients that we just really, when we see them on the list, on the label, we need to leave those products on the shelf. We need to look for other alternatives. So let's start with artificial color. So any color with a number next to it is going to be an artificial color. And artificial colors are chemical compounds. They're made from coal or tar derivatives. And they're used, to enhance color. They're linked, though, to allergic reactions, fatigue, asthma, skin rashes, hyperactivity, headaches. So they're not giving our bodies good information. The body doesn't know what to do with these artificial colors, and so they start to cause the body over time, sometimes immediately for people who are really sensitive to them, to spurt and sputter. Artificial flavorings. And or natural flavors. So artificial flavors are really just cheap chemical mixtures that mimic natural flavors, and they're linked to allergic reactions and dermatitis and eczema and hyperactivity, asthma. They can affect the thyroid. Now, natural flavors, we're going to talk in another video about the fact that the term natural is not really regulated. Natural flavors, it sounds great, but it's confusing because they can come from, they can be sourced from a food ingredient, but they can also be sourced from a non-food ingredient, and so they can still come from an ingredient that is not healthy for us. That's not, we wouldn't really consider natural. Artificial sweeteners like Splenda, NutraSweet and Equal, Sweet and Low, gosh, these are just really highly processed, chemically derived, zero-calorie sweeteners, and they're found in diet foods and diet products, and they're supposed to reduce calories. So a couple things. One is that the research does not support the use of artificial sweeteners for weight loss. They actually can negatively impact the metabolism, and they've also, some have been linked to things like cancer and headaches, dizziness, and other issues. Some can be neurotoxins. So again, we want to avoid the artificial sweeteners as much as possible. Preservatives, like the benzo preservatives, BHT, BHA, TBHQ, when we see those initials, they're compounds that preserve fats and prevent them from becoming rancid, which sounds like a good thing, right? But this isn't the way to go with these preservatives. These sometimes result in hyperactivity, asthma, dermatitis, connected to tumors, and they can affect the estrogen balance in the body and hormone levels. So again, over time, if we're eating a lot of packaged foods that have these red flag ingredients, that's where we get into trouble. Brominated vegetable oil. Brominated vegetable oil is actually a chemical that boosts flavor in many citric-based fruit and soft drinks. I believe it also helps to keep the color uniform in some of the sports drinks so it doesn't all settle to the bottom. And they actually, the brominated vegetable oil actually is shown to increase triglycerides and cholesterol in a bad way in the body. It can damage the liver, testicles, thyroid, heart, and kidneys. It is actually used as a flame retardant. So we've got this flame retardant chemical that's used in a lot of beverages, and a lot of beverages that are that kids drink a lot of. So one interesting thing, just a little story, is that Gatorade, I believe, has made the commitment to remove brominated vegetable oil from their sports drinks because there was a teenager who did a little research and was just really upset when she found out that this is used as a flame retardant, and started an online petition and got enough support that Gatorade has said that they are going to change that recipe. So I don't know if they're going to replace it with something just as crazy, but at least they're taking notice. So crystalline fructose is a highly concentrated fructose sugar, and you'll find it in sort of more quote unquote healthier drinks, or the drinks that people perceive as healthier, like vitamin water. So we want to really notice that it's the fructose, just like high fructose corn syrup, is problematic in the body. The liver does not really like it. It doesn't process the same way as regular sugar in the liver, and it can interfere with the messaging between the brain and the stomach in terms of if you're full and need to stop eating. So it's also, fructose is connected with sugar imbalances, and so we want to avoid crystalline fructose. Enriched flour is a tough one because that we're talking now pasta and cookies and crackers and just all those foods that kids often love. The mac and cheese and muffins, and gosh, not just kids. A lot of us love those, right? But many are made with enriched flour, and that turns to glucose in the body quickly, raises insulin, fuels inflammation. Pretty hard to really crowd out all the enriched flour, but I want you to start noticing what products you have in your home that are made from enriched flour, or what your family's eating out. It's pretty prevalent, and again, it just fuels inflammation in the body. It's just not good fuel for the body. High fructose corn syrup, I talked a little bit about, is highly concentrated fructose sugar. So not good for the body, despite what the corn industry is trying to convince us of. We want to avoid that, and it's in a lot of foods that are marketed towards children. Monosodium glutamate, or MSG, also goes by the name of autolyzed yeast extract, hydrolyzed soy protein. It's really toxic to the brain and the nervous system. It's a flavor enhancer. It's in a lot of restaurant foods and salad dressings, soups, chips, frozen entrees. It also can stimulate the appetite, cause headaches, nausea, weakness, wheezing, change in heart rate, all kinds of things. And some people are very, very sensitive to MSG and have to avoid it altogether. The rest of us may not realize that we have a sensitivity to it, but it's not good for us. It's not good fuel for the body. So we want to start paying attention. And you'll find it even in for instance, your organic broths, vegetable or chicken broth from the store. You'll find autolyzed yeast extract or hydrolyzed soy protein, and so you want to pay attention. You can always Google MSG, alternate names for MSG, and you'll get a long list of possible names. Preservatives like sodium benzoate, sodium nitrite, and sodium nitrate. So again, we're into preservatives, and they're used to preserve colors and flavors, especially in cured meats and fish. The thing is that they can combine the nitrates can combine with chemicals in the stomach and form another chemical, which is actually a carcinogen. So there is some information out there that tells us to avoid added nitrites and nitrates. They naturally occur in some foods, but we want to avoid some of the added ones. So just be on the lookout for those preservatives as red flag ingredients. Soy isolates and other non-organic soy products. So most of the soy in the United States is genetically modified, and we'll be talking more about that through the program. You want to avoid as much as possible, and it's really, really difficult to avoid, like the soy isolates and the different soy ingredients. But soy, in other parts of the world where we hear people eat a lot of soy, really they eat it in a different form. They eat it in a fermented form that makes it more digestible, more nutritious, less problematic. But soy is, again, genetically modified, and it also can interfere with thyroid and cause all kinds of problems in the body. sugar alcohols. You'll find things like sorbitol, erythritol, mannitol. Those are sugar alcohols. They're used by food companies so that the company can say that a product is sugar free or no added sugar, but they can cause some issues in the digestive system that are problematic. So we want to avoid sugar alcohols. Xylitol is one that, there are some health benefits to xylitol, and a lot of people do fine with it. So there's some xylitol gum or xylitol mints or xylitol toothpaste. So that's also a sugar alcohol, and you can tell that often because they end in OL, like the ones you see on the screen. But sometimes even xylitol will cause distress in the digestive system. So trans fats, or partially hydrogenated oils, including soybean oil, canola or vegetable oil, margarine, shortening. Again, we talked about trans fats when we looked at the label, and we really want to crowd these out of our family's diet. So they're in many, many, many packaged food products. So you want to look for those different ingredients, even if a package says no trans fats or zero trans fats. Okay, so that's kind of the list of the main red flag ingredients. So just start paying attention, start looking at labels, reading labels, noticing, and this week noticing, looking for these red flag ingredients. Start to talk to your family a little bit about red flag ingredients. Maybe point a couple out, or maybe kind of talk about reading labels, but make it fun. It's not a lecture. It's just fun. It's just that we're learning, and kids love to learn, and they like to be empowered. What they don't like is, when they feel like we're lecturing them, or we're gonna all of a sudden pull the rug out from them and from under them, and they're not going to be able to have any of their favorite things. So use this week just to kind of lay some groundwork for yourself and your family. And then remember, we'll be making changes, manageable changes, as we go along throughout the program.